Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us again for our digital summer series. Believe it or not, this is our next to last recording for the summer. Next week, we'll finish up with Philip Hathcock from the Amory congregation. This week, tonight, we get to hear from Scott Webster of the Red Bay congregation. Scott's a fantastic speaker, a wonderful Christian man, and he's got a really unique lesson tonight entitled How to Worship Satan Effectively. And I know that you're going to enjoy that. A couple of announcements. First of all, we've mentioned in the past or the past few weeks that we had intended on resuming an auditorium class at the church building on Wednesday evenings. This is going to be postponed until the month of September due to the rise in COVID cases and taking precautions. We will continue to offer a digital Bible class each Wednesday evening at 6:30 as we have throughout the entire quarantine period. So you can continue to have Bible study with us at 6:30 on YouTube or Facebook every Wednesday night. And of course, we'll keep you informed as those things change. One other announcement, of course, we express our sympathy to the family of Kenny Moore, who passed away this past week. His arrangements are visitation tomorrow, Thursday, July 23rd, from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m., with the funeral being at 1 p.m., all at the Marion County Funeral Home. And again, we express our sympathy to that family. We'll now turn things over to Scott.
Hello, everyone. I'm Scott Webster, and I am so thankful to be this evening for this summer series. I have looked forward to this for some time, and I hate that I could not be there in person with you all this evening, but this pandemic has altered our plans very greatly here at Red Bay. I know they have at Hamilton as well, but I am certainly thankful for this avenue we have to still have this summer series, and I hope that you'll be benefited by what I have to say tonight. And I certainly, again, appreciate the opportunity. Brother Ted has become a dear friend of mine, and I hold him in high esteem, Brother Ryan likewise. And your elders there, I appreciate for the invitation to all of those men, a special thank you. The lights have darkened. Now, only the black candles are burning around the stone altar. Upon the altar lays a woman, and she is there waiting to be violated in all types of sordid manners, though she will not call it violated because she is a willing sacrifice. As the people move in closer and closer to the altar, the high priest holds a chalice of blood that was drawn from the woman on the altar. Now he begins to pour it on her belly, and now the bell is rung, inviting Satan to come into their midst. A large list of names is taken from the book of Leviathan and read aloud. Abaddon, Beelzebub, Behemoth, Ammon. The priest stands holding a sword and then begins to turn clockwise toward each cardinal point on the compass, pointing his sword and beckoning the princes of hell to come forth. From there it only gets worse. Satan is glorified, adored, and worshipped. When we think about the worship of Satan, the events I have just described are what many of us think about in how to worship Satan. But tonight with our time, I want us to look at how to worship Satan effectively, because a person can accomplish Satan worship without having a chalice of blood or a woman upon the altar. Tonight I want us to notice three people who chose to worship Satan. You might be thinking about those people who offer sacrifices to Baal long ago, but that's not our study this evening. Nor is it those people who sacrifice their children to Molech, as horrible as that is. I'm not talking about Cain, nor am I talking about Nadab and Abihu. All of those people would make great studies in the worship of Satan, no doubt. But tonight I want to invite you to Luke chapter 14. And I begin in verse 16. Again, Luke 14, beginning in verse 16. Then said he unto them, a certain man made a great supper and bade many, and sent his servant at supper time to say to them that were bidden, Come, for all things are now ready. And they all with one consent began to make excuse. The first said unto him, I have bought a piece of ground, and I must needs go and see it. I pray thee, have me excused. Another said, I have bought 5 yoke of oxen, and I go to prove them. I pray thee, have me excused. And another said, I have married a wife, and therefore I cannot come. So that servant came and showed his lord these things. Then the master of the house, being angry, said to his servant, Go out quickly into the streets and lanes of the city, and bring in hither the poor, and the maimed, and the halt, and the blind. And the servant said, Lord, it is done as thou hast commanded, and yet there is room. And the Lord said unto the servant, Go out into the highways and hedges, and compel them to come in, that my house may be filled. For I say unto you, that none of those men which were bidden shall taste of my supper. This passage I have just read unto you has everything to do with becoming a follower of the devil. A friend of mine, while at the school of preaching in Memphis, was from Los Angeles. Actually, he was born and raised in Arkansas, but he moved to Los Angeles and worked there for a period of time before coming to the school of preaching. His name was Philip Van Winkle. Brother Philip was an outstanding gospel preacher and a great friend of mine, and sadly he succumbed to cancer not too awful long ago. But Brother Van Winkle told a story about a interview that the TV station he worked with conducted with Peter H. Gilmore. Now, Peter H. Gilmore is the high priest of the Church of Satan, and he is the writer of the Satanic Bible. During the interview, the host of the show was trying his best to get Gilmore to make a sacrifice. Boy, that'd make great television, he thought, to get this man to offer a sacrifice to Satan on television. And he kept saying, Come on, we have an altar already set up. Just go out there, get a goat, put it on the altar. Come on, worship Satan for us all to see. And this went on and on for a while. And finally, Peter H. Gilmore said, If you want to worship Satan, if you really want to worship Satan, just do what you want. If you want to go to church, go. But go because you want to go. If you want to have sex with men or women or whatever it is you desire, do it. But do it because you want to do it. If you want to go out drinking, you want to go out and do drugs, just do it. But whatever you do it because you want to do it. He concluded with these words, When you live your life serving yourself, you are serving Satan. And so, if you really want to worship Satan effectively, just do what you want. Now, with this authority's advice in our minds, let us look at these 3 people and see what they did that caused them to worship Satan. The first one we met back in verse 18, he said, The first said unto him, I have bought a piece of ground, and I must needs go and see it. I pray thee, have me excused. I assume to a lot of people that makes perfect sense. You know, this man had just bought some land, and he needed to go look at it. But in reality, how insulting this excuse must have been. Think about it, friend. Would you have bought a piece of land without looking at it carefully? My friend, if so, as the old song suggests, then I have some oceanfront property in Arizona I'd love to sell you. You and I would not buy a piece of ground without first having gone and taken a look at it at least. And furthermore, would you think that you had to go look at it in the dark? The fact is, this man was driven by his possessions. This man is similar to the man who is going to pull down all of his barns and build greater barns. Then he's going to sit back and take it easy. And you remember God said, Thou fool, Luke 12:15 through 20. Earlier, Jesus had said, "Take heed and beware of covetousness, for a man's life consisteth not in the abundance of the things which he possesseth." This man's excuse, as do the others, shows that he made engagements for business. Others will find out for pleasure, without having any regard to the hour of the banquet. You know, there are a lot of people today who do the very same thing in regard to the hour of worship. They make all sorts of plans, and they have no regard whatsoever to the hour of worship, even though we are told that we are not to forsake the assembling of ourselves together, Hebrews 10:25. And although we are exhorted to obey them that have the rule over you and submit yourselves, for they watch over your souls, as they that must give account, that they may do it with joy and not with grief, for that is unprofitable for you. Hebrews 13:17. Yet many of us make all of our plans without any regard to the hour of worship. How many are busy doing what they have chosen instead of what God commanded them to do and what God deserves for us to be doing? I've never ceased to be amazed in all of these years at those people who willfully neglect worship service. I'm talking about willfully neglect worship service to go to any asunder of different things. Decorations, sporting events, family reunions, golf tournaments, fishing tournaments, the list goes on and on. They have no regard whatsoever for the hour of worship. Gilmore said, if you want to serve Satan effectively, then just do what you want to do. Now, the ones who were invited, as did this man, they placed no value on the friendship of the one who invited them. And sometimes we do not regard the friendship of Christ very highly when we reject him. Jesus said, "Come unto me, all you that labor and are heavy laden, I'll give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn of me, for I am meek and lowly in heart, and ye shall find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy, my burden is light." Matthew 11:28 through 30. Yet oftentimes we reject him. We don't regard salvation highly when we neglect it. The Hebrew writer said, "How shall we escape if we neglect so great salvation?" My friend, we're not going to escape. My friend, we better place our values in the right place. And we better value very highly the friendship that we have with the great one who invited us to the banquet feast. Again, the leading authority in Satan worship. According to him, the man we are discussing in Luke 14 worshiped Satan, because he did what he wanted to do. What about us, brethren? You know, we must be willing to surrender all. In regards to our material goods, are we willing to surrender all that we have to worship the great God of heaven? No man can serve two masters. Either he'll hate the one, hold the other, or else he'll despise the one and hold to the other. You cannot serve God and mammon, Matthew 6:24. Are we willing to give up our time? This man that we read about was unwilling to give up his time. Dear friend, we need to be willing to give God our time. You know, some will not even give God the hours, the very few hours required for public worship. Not because they are hindered in some providential manner beyond their ability to control, but simply because they do not want to. Some people cannot give him the time required to attend Bible classes, not because they are hindered from doing so, but simply because they do not want to. Other people are continually tardy because they want it to be that way. And God knows our heart. But dear friend, if we're not willing to put the Lord first and give our time to the Lord, how can we give anything else? The second man we met was in verse 19. The other said, I have bought 5 yoke of oxen, and I go to prove them. I pray thee have me excused. This man got caught up in his work. This man needed, he said, to go prove his oxen. Apparently, he thought going to work was more important than attending this particular feast. The oxen were now his. He could try them at any time, but yet he chose this time. I wonder sometimes if we do not do that. Does our lust for material things get in the way of our doing the Lord's work? I was told a long time ago about a deacon in another congregation, and this particular man who served as a deacon missed every Wednesday night in the months of October to January because he was a part-time referee and he wanted to earn some extra cash. I tell you folks, to me, there's something wrong in the Lord's church when even the ones who have been chosen by the elders to serve in such positions are unwilling to obey God's will. Friend, deacons are servants. I realize they are special servants. And simply put, if they don't want to sacrifice and obey God's will in carrying out their position, then perhaps they should not be deacons. Something is wrong when we as individual members do not perform our duties to the great, glorious God of heaven because we do not want to. What did Gilmore say? Didn't he say just do what you want to do? In Amos chapter 8, I want to read to you beginning in verse 4. Hear this, O ye that swallow up the needy, even to make the poor of the land to fail, saying, when will the new moon be gone, that we may sell corn, and the Sabbath that we may set forth wheat, making the ephah small and the shekel great, and falsifying the balances by deceit, that we may buy the poor for silver, and the needy for a pair of shoes, yea, and sell the refuse of the wheat. Amos is pointing out for us by inspiration that these people are ripe for destruction. God will indeed bring judgment upon these people. And Amos even points out to us some of the things in which they were guilty, that they were now about to bring their destruction. They want the Sabbath day to be over with. They want it to hurry up and get on past them so that they can go back to cheating people and make more money. You see, the Sabbath day was just in their way. Despite Exodus 20 verse 8, the command to keep it holy, it was now just in their way. Friend, does that remind you of anything? You know, today, in our society, friend, long before the pandemic of COVID-19 overwhelmed America, for many people the Lord's day had already turned into the Lord's hour. What is my attitude about Sunday evening? What is my attitude about Wednesday Bible study? What is my attitude about gospel meetings? What is my attitude about special studies, vacation Bible school? What is my attitude about coming together? I don't know how many times in all my years of preaching I've been asked the question, do I have to attend? Friend, the answer to that question is, what is the highlight of the week? You know, the psalmist penned these words. He said, I was glad when they said to me, let us go to the house of the Lord. Psalm 122, verse 1. The children of God were glad when they had opportunity to return to Jerusalem. They had been in exile for 70 years. Dear friend, I pray that people today do not have to suffer the same to develop that same attitude as those people as they return to Jerusalem. We need to remember, if you want to worship Satan, just do what you want to do. The third man said, I have married a wife, and therefore I cannot come. You know, this man had a wife, and he wanted to spend time with her. But you know, men leave their wives to go to hunting. They leave their wives to go fishing. They leave their wives to go to ball games and different activities. And furthermore, why couldn't this man have taken his wife with him to the supper? The Lord said, he that loveth father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. And he that loveth son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. And he that taketh up his cross, and he that taketh not his cross, and followeth after me is not worthy of me. Matthew 10, 37 through 38. I remember, and I know you do as well, after the Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah, he told those faithful few, don't look back to the cities. And you know, Lot's wife, perhaps at a moment of weakness, perhaps at a moment of compassion, it is my belief that she was leaving children, and I know leaving friends behind. Perhaps it was just in a moment of weakness and compassion that she turned around that one last time to get the last glimpse of the old home place and all she was leaving behind, but then she was gone. The Lord did exactly as he had promised and turned her into a pillar of salt. Now the others had to continue on without her. Gilmore said, just do what you want. What about us? Would we really leave our loved ones behind if they stood in the way of us following the Lord? You know, I had great respect for another man I met at the school of preaching many years ago, because that man, an older gentleman, best of my understanding, my recollection, he's in his 50s, late 50s at the school of preaching already. And he had realized, as he was studying and obeying the gospel, that he was in an unscriptural marriage. And if he was going to make his life right with the master, he was going to have to get out of that unscriptural marriage. And he did. He put the obeying of the Lord above that relationship he had. This man could not. This man would not. This man said, I married a wife. You might remember, in the Old Testament, a man could get out of going off to war for a year if he married a wife. But my friend, that's not the case with following Jesus. So what must we do to follow God? What does Christ require of us? What is it that I must give up? And my friend, the answer is everything. Jesus said so likewise, whosoever he be of you that forsaketh not all that he hath, he cannot be my disciple. Luke 14:33. Dear friend, we're going to have to be like Paul. Paul said, I am crucified with Christ. Nevertheless I live. Yet not I, but Christ liveth in me. And the life which I now live in the flesh, I live by the faith of the Son of God, who loved me and gave himself for me. Galatians 2, verse 20. I have been crucified. I am dead to myself. Everything I do, every decision I make, everything that I have, all that I am, is Christ. Yes, friend, these three people we met in this passage tonight, these people were Satan worshipers because they chose to do what they wanted to do. Dear friend, don't be a Satan worshiper. Be willing to do what he says. Be willing to lose your life for his cause, for his church. What does it take to follow after the Lord? Perhaps Paul put it the plainest in Romans 12, the first 2 verses. He said, I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that ye present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable unto God, which is your reasonable service. And be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. We are to be a living sacrifice. Fact is, you are a living sacrifice. This very moment, you are a living sacrifice. I am a living sacrifice. You must decide, I must decide upon which altar we are to be offered. Either one will be willing to worship God, or as a result of that refusal to worship God, they automatically become a worshiper of Satan. If you are not willing to give God all that you have, then friend, you must go on worshiping Satan. Whether you are naked upon the altar, having the liquid poured out on your chest and belly, or whether you are just going along in life, just doing what you want to do, you are still worshiping Satan. Friend, I hope that you realize tonight how easy it is for one to worship Satan. Perhaps that's why Jesus said, if any man would come after him, the first thing we had to do was to deny ourselves. My friend, I hope tonight that you are willing to deny yourself and get away from your way, my way, and succumb to God. Submit to Him freely. Well, friend, it's very easy to worship Satan. It does not require any extravagant lights or lighting or special ceremonies or smoke and altars and all of that. The leading worshiper of Satan said, if you want to worship Satan effectively, just do what you want. My friend, I hope next time you're tempted to do what you want to do instead of doing what God would have you to do, that you would remember and make the right decision. I thank you for your time. If I could ever be of your assistance again, please let me know. Thank you, and God bless you.